I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Global Book Network, we're taking a thoughtful deep dive into the psychological and philosophical roots of the United States of America with a great author, one of my favorite guests. His name is JohnKPitkethly, and he has penned a powerful book. It is called We the People and Our Freedom Charters. This book offers a unique perspective, treating the American Republic as a living being, shaped by its ancestral origins, formative moments, and evolving identity. Blending history, sociology, and mental health insight, our guest explores not just what America is, but who America is and where we go from here. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us once again here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. John, welcome back. Great to see you here today.
Thank you, Logan. It's great to be back.
Great to have you on the show. Last time we were here, we talked about how you believe America has been adrift since the end of the Cold War. Talk to us a little bit about what you mean by that and why you think that is so.
Well, I think that America is supposed to be a full experiment in self government. That's what I've been reading. When I do my research, I see that America is not supposed to be about the government. The government is a component of America, but we, the people, are actually the primary owners, if you will, of the nation. We are the first sovereigns of the nation, if you will. And I think what happened during the Cold War and before that, World War II and the Great Depression, uh, required a larger government than was originally meant to exist for our purposes as people who are self governing. And so, for the last 100 years, really since the end of the 1920s, we've had expanding government that has tried to take care of certain things that are very important and needed to be taken care of. And I'm not disputing the fact that we needed the government to step in for the Great Depression, World War II, and the Cold War. But I think in all that time, we, the people, have forgotten our role and that we continually look to the government for all our solutions. And we're putting our trust in people who are running for office and who hold office. And that's not really what we're supposed to be doing.
Exactly. It seems like we're creating a nanny state where government takes care of us from cradle to grave. And it's an overreach, and it's not really what our founding fathers envisioned, correct?
Yes, yes. And it's not that we have to stick with everything they envisioned because they couldn't have seen everything that was coming. But I do believe that our founding premise was self government. And through my research, going all the way back to the beginnings of civilization, I see how that evolved. And I think we've gotten away from that. Whenever there's a problem, people look to the president, people look to the federal government, or even their state government sometimes, but they should be the last in a long line of resources that we have. First and foremost, we should be looking at ourselves and what we can do as a people to solve our own problems. The government does have a role and it is very important, but that role is extremely limited. And since the end of the Cold War, like I said last time, I feel like we've been adrift. And I think the reason we've been adrift is because we spent almost 100 years needing that huge government to protect us from a depression, a war, and possible invasion or even nuclear attack. And then when that ended, we were sort of left standing with our hands empty, going, what do we do next? And we didn't really find anything. And like I said before, 9/11 helped to shape that focus again, but we are waiting for external forces to occur to bring us together. And I don't think we should be waiting until we are being attacked by a common enemy to come together and to work together to survive and to improve our existence.
What are some of the things that we, the people, can be doing to make our lives better and our countries better? Uh, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, first, I'm no guru. I'm not
Mhm.
here to lecture to anybody, and I am just as guilty as all the rest of us of a certain line of thinking that looks to other people for solutions. But I think the first thing that would be most helpful is for us to really, each of us, take a look at ourselves as an individual. Individual sovereignty is a part of the American experience that's really exclusive to our country compared to other countries of the world now or have ever been in existence. We are supposed to be our own sovereign entities where we control our lives. We don't look for other people to control it for us. There are certain aspects that I think we should look at, and perhaps the first thing we need to do is drop our pride, drop our ego, and take on a humble approach to our problems because they are immense and no one person has all the solutions.
Absolutely. And you have to look no further than countries where there is a lot of government overreach, like Russia and China and
Sure.
others, to realize that you're really just creating another set of problems when you're looking for big government to be the solution, right?
Well, I mean, we need a big government in the modern world because of threats that are coming our way,
Mhm.
high technology, all these things. So I'm not saying that, I mean, obviously shrinking the government would be nice, but we need a government. It's not that we don't need the government. And it's not that we should be getting rid of everything in order to free ourselves, because there are many things that the government does that we need them to do. My concern is that our first go to, if you will, is to look to the government for solutions to our problems. And that requires us to put faith in politicians, in people who are fallible and, obviously can be bought off very easily. And that's a whole different topic, too.
Exactly, exactly. But
I
you're
mean,
right. We need to be more self-reliant. And certainly do need governments
self-reliant.
to make sure that the industries are not polluting our air too much, that our water is clean, that our streets are paved, that our boundaries and borders are protected, we're safe from invaders. There is a need, obviously, of course, for government. You spoke about the need for Americans to be an informed citizenry. Talk to us about what you mean by that.
Well, first of all, like you said last time, how does education play into all this? And I said, I think it's number one. And being an informed citizenry starts with education. And it's not just an education of who we are, but why we are who we are, if that makes sense. There's all kinds of great ideas in our founding philosophy, and even if we learn what they are, we're not learning why they are there. And what previous experiences in human history taught us that we need those things. And there are a couple examples of that. Um, I'm trying to think of one that's a little more profound. I guess it would be our need to take care of of ourselves and each other. That's that would I would say is our first step. Taking care of ourselves and each other. Putting other people's needs on an equal par with our own. Not that we all have to be like Gandhi or anything, but that'd be great if we all were. But
Right.
for us to look to help our fellow human beings so that they don't need a large government coming in and rescuing them from whatever it is that ails them.
What other areas do you believe we as a people have lost connection to in our founding?
Well, I think, and I want to be understood properly here, is our relationship with our Creator. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about people's faith in God outside of just having an individual relationship with their Creator. However, we choose to conceptualize our Creator. Uh, I feel that, and like I said, I am so included in this. I have made these mistakes just like everyone else. We look to ourselves in almost an arrogant way sometimes. I mean, there are plenty of times we need to depend on ourselves, but there are other times that we need to have faith in things that are bigger than us and not man-made things. Things such as our Creator, which is part of our freedom charters, is part of our established founding. Nature and nature's God is in the Declaration of Independence. And there are plenty of other areas in the founding charters, the Declaration of Independence, US Constitution, Bill of Rights, and subsequent amendments that mention our Creator and that we need our Creator in order to find guidance and to know what to do because we don't know everything. And that, I guess, goes back to that taking on that assumption of humility to admit we don't know all the answers and that we need each other to figure it out.
Absolutely. So where do we go from here? What's your vision?
Well, first of all, like I said, we need to take a look at ourselves, and that's something for each individual person to do for themselves on their own terms. What I would say is, try to drop our pride, our ego, our arrogance, and just look at who we are as humble human beings. Then to search for greater meaning than just our everyday lives. I feel like a lot of what we do is focused on entertainment, for instance. We're constantly looking to be entertained by music, by sports, by theater, by movies and television. And those are all great things. But it's almost become a point where we're doing that instead of looking at ourselves and looking at what we're supposed to be doing. Those are supposed to be nice distractions where we've made that the focal point of living. And like I said, I'm just as guilty as the rest of us.
Exactly. Well,
Also,
go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Also,
Well, I
what?
was going to say educational reforms, getting back to teaching the fundamental principles of our country, what it is, what it's not, why it is what it is, and where we have been and where we are hopefully going. We're supposed to be working on perfecting human society. Now, of course, total perfection is outside our control, but we can have always moved toward a greater existence, an existence where more and more people share in the benefits of civilization rather than exist on the outskirts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have such a unique background. You have a love of American history and you have a background in mental health as well. Talk to us
Yes.
about combining those two to write this book.
Well, certainly, from our last discussion, I looked at America the same way I would look at a person that came into my office and tried to do an assessment, essentially a psychological analysis of who is America and who are we the people. And it's not a matter of whether or not we agree with everything that's happened in the past. Of course, we're not all going to agree, but all these things have played a role in our lives and they do exist or have existed, and it has helped to shape us. And having an understanding of those things is so important in order to understand ourselves. One of the things I think we've also gotten away from is working together in a solution focused way to solve our problems.
Mm.
I feel that when I look at television, when I listen to debates, it's usually two extreme or two very radical ideas that are very ungiving and condemn the other. And it's almost like we need to choose between those two extremes. And both of those extremes, in their purest sense, are not correct. I think a solution focused discussion would be on not trying to convince other people to believe what we believe personally, but to work with others, as we all have a vested interest in this, to come up with solutions to the issues that are facing us in a way that care for everybody, no matter where you are on the political divide. And we can do that if we're not constantly forced into these extremes. But that seems to be the case, and that's just something that I've noticed. And as I've said many times, I am just as guilty as the next person. And again, it takes self-reflection again to try to clear our minds of that way of looking at things and to get back on task of, okay, what is my goal here? My goal here is to have a solution that is fair and equitable for everyone or the vast majority of people, not for me to impose what I think is right and what I think is best on everybody else.
Exactly. I think most people do live in the middle. You just hear the voices from the far right and the far left the loudest. And I think
Absolutely.
that's absolutely amplified by the media, the social media that are looking to get all the clicks and all the views and all of that stuff. And they don't care what happens to the American people and our beloved country as a result.
Yes, sir. I agree with that. What we need are constructive conversations. I think a lot, and I've met a lot of people who don't even want to talk about issues because they're afraid of being attacked, regardless of which side they're on when it comes to left right. They just would rather not. And I have done that too in certain situations. I'm not going to express what I honestly think because I don't want to be attacked and I don't want to have to deal with people getting hostile toward me. And that is breaking down the conversation to where we can't have one, and so there's no conversation, there's no understanding, and there's no solution. It just becomes two extreme sides fighting each other and arguing with no solution.
Exactly, exactly. We should all want the same thing, the best that's for the American people, the best that's for the United States of America in itself, but instead it's become a shouting match from the left and the right, each poking fun of each other, each ridiculing each other, and nothing seems to get done. Interesting about your book, of course, is it is an unofficial psychoanalysis of the American Republic. Talk to us a little bit about that aspect of the book.
Well, our freedom charters, as explained last time, are not the same as the charters of freedom. The charters of freedom are the physical documents in the National Archives. Our freedom charters are the ideas that are in the charters of freedom that go all the way back to the beginnings of civilization and all the different experiences that different groups of people have had throughout the thousands of years of civilization that has led us to this point. And I also see us as a vital link into the next step and where we're going next. And that's really why I wrote the book. I wanted to make it say, okay, this is where we are. This is how we got here. Where do we go next? And I don't want to try to impose my views on that because I'm like anyone else. I don't have all the answers, but at least establish the founding, I guess, the premise of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to proceed. And the premise is that we own ourselves, we own our own individuality, and that we are not just taxpayers. We're not just people who belong to the government. We don't belong to the government. The government belongs to us. The government is there and it serves a vital role, but that role is extremely limited and it's broken up into many sections. we talk about checks and balances of the federal government, but that's just one part of it. The enumerated rights in the Constitution for the federal government are the lists of rights that the federal government has. Those are responsibilities that our federal government has, but everything else that are reserved rights go to the states or go to the people.
Mm.
And our states should be responsible for many things, and we should be responsible for many things. And this constant look to the federal government for solutions, I think, comes again from 100 years of dealing with depression, World War, and Cold War. But in fact, we should be looking at ourselves and looking at our local populations first to move forward. And operating under these premises that we are all sovereign individuals and that no person has the right to infringe on the natural rights of other people. And that goes back to our faith in our creator, that our natural rights are a product of our creation. They're not part of the government. They're not given to us by the government or anything that human beings have ever done.
So our God-given rights.
They're God-given rights, and I
Yeah.
and I use God in a very broad sense.
Yeah.
Of course, in my book, I talk a lot about the God of Abraham because the God of Abraham is the most popular conceptualization of God in our country, and I think in the world. And I should explain that before I start offending people. When I talk about the conceptualization of God, what we're talking about is a universal, omnipresent force that exists everywhere, everywhere, and inside and outside this universe. There is no possible way any one of us could know exactly what that is. That is so far beyond our abilities to understand. All we can do is try to conceptualize in our minds what God is or what the creator is. And as we do that, we sometimes, I believe, fall victim to our thinking our imagination is reality,
Mm.
where our imagination is our futile attempt to understand something we cannot understand. Now, different faiths have different scriptures that define their conceptualization of God, and I am not against any of those. I have my own. But I also realize that as a human being, I do not have that kind of insight. I cannot say what ultimate truth is as far as the universe is concerned because I lack that perspective. Again, it goes back to humility. I need to surrender myself to the fact that I don't know.
That's a important admission from everyone, knowing the things that you don't know or the things that are unknowable. Um, Talk to us a
Yes,
little
sir.
bit, it's particularly for the viewers at home who did not watch our last interview, what the freedom charters are and what you mean by that.
Our freedom charters are the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution to the United States, the Bill of Rights, and all the subsequent amendments, but not the physical body, but the mental and spiritual body, if you will, of those things. Sort of like the way we are a physical body, but we are also a mental and spiritual body that goes back all the way to the beginnings of creation. The freedom charters are everything that's happened up until this point, and we are continuing to add to them. It's not, they're not just static documents sitting in an archive somewhere. They're real living things that we are doing and living every day. And honestly, I think we should appreciate that because I think we've also lost that aspect that, you know, Americans, especially, we live better than most people have ever lived throughout history. And not that our problems aren't important, they are important, and we need to work on our problems. But having an appreciation for what we do have, the freedoms that we have, the prosperity that we have, the lifestyles that we live, all of these things are blessings. And not appreciating those things, I think, is really a detriment. We do that at our own detriment because one thing I've learned, I'm 56. One thing that I've learned in life is that if I don't appreciate what I have, I tend to lose it because I don't do what it takes to keep it. And I'm afraid that is actually exactly why I wrote the book, because I was fearful that we are losing our republic. And for the people who did not see the first interview, it started back in 2017 when I watched all these things going on in our streets and how people were just so disorderly and chaotic and screaming all kinds of things that are just not accurate and not true about who we are as a people.
Yeah. My wife's from China, and when she sees the discord in this country and she sees the manipulation of politicians, she points back to the Cultural Revolution in China and says that's what it was like. She loves this country. She loves the liberty and the freedom that it offers and wants it to be the place of American dreams like it's always been. But it is threatened right now. Do you think your book is a call to action or more of a reflection tool?
Well, it's written as a reflection, and I hope that people take it as a call to action because it's not my book necessarily, but it's just reality. If we don't secure our liberties, if we don't appreciate what we have, if we don't value what we have and work hard to keep it, we're going to lose it. And when we lose it, it's not going to be easy to come back because once it's gone, then you're up against some really difficult forces to work with. And your wife, being from China, I'm sure understands that very, very clearly.
Exactly. If America doesn't lead, what country should lead? I mean, what country offers more prosperity, more liberty, greater ideals than this one? We have freedom of religion. We have freedoms of speech. We have we have freedoms in this country that are only dreamed about by people in other countries.
Yes, sir. And that's why so many people want to come here, which I don't resent. I welcome new people to come here in an orderly and legal way,
Agreed. Agreed.
but we should want people to come here and to contribute to our republic. Uh, I would say just take a look if we're trying to figure out if someone out there is trying to figure out should we follow an American model or maybe a collectivist model. And collectivism is Nazism, socialism, fascism, communism. Look at countries that like North and South Korea. North and South Korea, Korea is a single country, single people. Look at the difference between the people in the North and the people in the South. Look at how different that is. I just watched a documentary on the difference between Yemen and Oman, and they're right next to each other, right outside the Persian Gulf, and they're just total polar opposites. These are people who share the same culture, that come from the same background, that have basically the same views, but their systems of government or lack of wreaks havoc on some of these people. And Yemen, of course, and North Korea are two very telling tales of what happens if governments fail. Well, Yemen is definitely if a government fails, and North Korea is if you give everything over to the government and let the government control everything. Both are extreme examples, but that is reality. And we need to find somewhere where we can continue to move forward in our progress of a more enlightened and greater society. There's going to be disagreements. We're going to have uh, disagreements, and we can have constructive discussions about it. And just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean they're evil. It doesn't mean that they're trying to destroy you. It doesn't mean that you should unfriend them or anything like that. It means that you're probably not communicating. And then, of course, we're going back into mental health counseling, where I actually do counseling with couples and families where I teach them how to communicate more effectively.
I think the American people need a course from you, John, on how to communicate more effectively. In the meantime, this book will do the trick. It is called We the People and Our Freedom Charters. It is a book that offers a unique perspective, treating the American Republic as a living being, shaped by its ancestral origins, formative moments, and evolving identity. John, thank you so much for joining us here today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me back.
Appreciate your insight and your wisdom. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford for the Global Book Network. So long for now.